Welcome. So today we're going to discuss the difference between your corporate communication, internal communication, and operational communication. Most people are familiar with communication as a profession in its marketing form. So they know brochures and advertisements and radio and television. But what communication we practice are communication within a business. Now, it's a very complex profession because we have to work with people's understanding. Communication in its essence means that we exchange meaning. We understand one another. Within a large organization, multinational or a factory where there's many individuals, it's very difficult to align people with different cultural backgrounds, different understanding, different professions, different expertise to all do the same thing. And that is the role of the strategic communication professional, to look at what the business needs to do, to look at who the audience is, and then to make sure that meaning and understanding is shared between everybody involved. Now, there's many sub-disciplines in strategic communication, and we often interweave them and do them all at once. So today I want to just take a pause and unpack 3 of them differently to explain the difference between them. The first one is strategic corporate communication. In this function, we look after investor relations. We tell people who are interested in our share price how we are doing as an organization. We manage the corporate identity, the brand. We make things pretty. We make sure that when you see anything around this company, you know that it is my brand that are talking with you. And it's a corporate voice. It has a tone, a look and a feel, and we're responsible for pulling that through every channel that we use, whether that's digital, on web, newsletters, emails, social media, or it's physical in our environments, the branding on our shops, or it's any kind of communication that you receive from our organization. So that is corporate communication. Then also one that people are very familiar with are internal communication. So the organization has a number of channels and ways with which they communicate with their employees. The larger your employee work base, the more spread out they are, the more challenging it becomes to communicate with them and make sure that they're all focused with clarity on the vision and what we do in our organization. So that's the role of internal communication. The one that's less familiar and not as much talked about is operational communication. And it's one that creates a lot of tension in organizations. Usually when we interact for the first time with a client, the client will tell us, we do all these things. We have newsletters, we have posters, the more people say communication isn't working, the more channels they create, and the louder we speak, and the more we speak, and we do videos, and we do town halls, and we communicate to the nth degree. But still, when we ask people, what is your biggest concern in the company? They come back to us and they tell us communication. And usually it's not because your corporate communication or your internal communication is not working. It's usually because operational day-to-day communication is not working. That kind of communication is not in the hands of a communication professional. Bad news, because that is not something that we can directly influence. Our role in operational day-to-day communication is to empower the line managers. In some companies that we work with, there's 11 levels of management between the guy doing the work on the shop floor and the CEO making the decisions. There are so many layers between the operator and the decision makers. And the communication professional can coordinate, can advise, but we cannot control the operational day-to-day communication. These are things like the shift schedules, the mining breakdowns, the retail stock levels. So no matter what your industry, in your operations, there are a couple of key performance indicators that management usually have a very clear view about. But people who are not in management and usually also not connected through a computer or a device, usually managers get those things via email. And the people on the shop floor don't have access to digital platforms. So there's a huge operational disconnect. And when people say, "You're not communicating to me," they mean, in my job, day to day, I don't have information available to me that will make me more successful at my job. I'm basically playing soccer or rugby without a scoreboard. And that's the kind of operational information that they need. So operational communication is a process where you empower all the levels of management in your organization to let communication flow up and down, and to make sure that everyone in the organization knows day to day the information that they need to perform the best at their job. People are inherently proud. People want to be good at their jobs, but very often we disempower them because of many biases that we have. We think that they won't keep the information confidential. We think that they can't understand the complexity of the information, whatever the reason may be. But when you start giving people a diagram or a tool to understand their work environment better, when you give them as much information possible, that is operational communication. And we need to be better as communication professionals to, when there is a production issue, when there is whatever operational issue in a business, to assist the business and all the role players in that value chain to become excellent communicators. Because communication is one of those things. You don't know how to create it, but you know when it's not there. And when that blockage of flow is away, when that blockage is gone, people can really communicate and operate at a high level. So if you have limited budget and you have to choose whether you spend your money on corporate communication, on internal communication, or on operational communication, my advice is to start with operational communication. Spend your money on training and making your operational day-to-day production, operations, retail environment as smooth as possible. Secondly, invest in internal communication and then spend your money on external communication. Because when your organization is internally healthy and you're meeting your targets, your employees become brand ambassadors to the outside world in any way. So if you have a tight budget, focus on operational communication.